Hi. In today's conversation, I'd like to share a few thoughts on responding to a medical writing test which asks for an abstract to be composed. Sometimes the word synopsis is used. First and foremost, it's very important to read the instructions carefully and find out whether what is being requested is an abstract versus an introduction. Sometimes these words are used interchangeably while having a conversation. However, an abstract is very different from an introduction, and we'll talk about that difference in just a moment. But first, let's talk about composing an abstract. The way this test is structured, or the way I've experienced it when I have previously responded to medical writing tests, is that the abstract from a clinical paper or the abstract from a scientific paper is omitted, it's removed, and everything else of the paper, which is the introduction, the results, the methods, the discussion, the conclusion, everything else is included. And the purpose of this exercise is really to take all that information and to put all of that information in a bite sized abstract. And the word limit for the abstract is more often than not defined as part of the medical writing assessment. Now, it can be overwhelming to sit down and read all the content and to look at all the data and the figures and the tables and everything and not be in a position to pinpoint exactly what goes in the abstract, and that's a natural feeling. So, I'd like to share a few thoughts on how I was able to take that information and quickly gather exactly the information that I needed. So, an abstract pretty much talks about three or four different things. The first is why the research was conducted. The second is how, just a high level overview of the methodology. And the third is what, which is the outcome or the result of the research. So, I began by writing down three simple words on a document: why, how, and what. And then using these three words as guidance, as guiding principles, so to speak, I would then reread the manuscript and find out where is the why statement, where is the statement that talks about the knowledge gap that needed to be filled, where do the authors address why they're conducting this research, and I would extract those key one or two sentences and put them down under why. The second is how. What is the key methodology being used? What is the one guiding method which is helping them reach the overall why of the research? And I would write that down under how. And finally, what, which is results. This is easy to find. The results section is easy to find. So every publication would have the primary result as well as sub results, which is something which is most important to convey, which would be the primary results, and other benefits or other sub results which were obtained by conducting that research. In an abstract, we only need to describe the primary result and not the sub results. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So once I had my statements, the why statement, the how statement, and the what statement, I would then take these statements and begin writing the abstract. Paraphrase these statements, make it consistent, add a little bit of an introductory statement, and work on the flow of the abstract. And finally, once the abstract draft is ready, it was also important to go back into the manuscript and look at any statistics which support the most important result. Any little bit of data which was used. It could have been number of subjects, number of patients, p-values, the hazard ratio, the confidence interval. Very important statistics which support the most important result is important to also mention along with the result in the abstract. And this can be worked into the sentence which describes the result. And finally, it's also important to QC. QC the documents beginning with very simple things like going back to the instructions and looking to see if the word limit has been exceeded, word limit has been met. Check for grammar, check for sentence structure, check for spelling mistakes, and so on. So QC is again another very important step. So to summarize, how do you begin the abstract? First off, don't be overwhelmed. You can do it. And how do you do it? Think about breaking down the problem into some simple components. Search for your why statement, search for the how statement, search for the what statement. look at the statistics supporting the most important result, work that into the abstract, think about flow, consistency, sentence structure, and don't forget to QC. Now, finally, let's talk about the difference between an abstract and an introduction. An introduction doesn't have results in it. That's the major difference. An introduction talks about the why, it talks a little bit about the how, but an introduction only introduces the topic because the results is covered in a separate section. So keep that in mind and think about that when you read the instructions of your medical writing assessment. Think and observe whether what is being asked is an abstract or an introduction. We will talk about an introduction in a later conversation. However, now this discussion is only limited to talking about an abstract. So think about that, and all the best with composing your next abstract.